The heat hung heavy in the air, pressing down on the ground as the sun, like a scorching disk, slowly rose above the rooftops. The asphalt on River Road in Santa Clarita shimmered as if covered by a thin glass film. Sprinklers on neighboring lawns quietly ticked, scattering water, and the air filled with the pungent scent of freshly cut grass and a faint aroma of barbecue from a few houses down the street. It was the most ordinary summer day, ordinary for everyone, except for her. 7-year-old Lily Thompson sat on a small wooden stool in front of her makeshift stand. Her thin legs didn't reach the ground, but her gaze was full of determination. With her small hands, she carefully adjusted the sign. Lemonade for Life, large. Bold letters, drawn with markers, shimmered in the sunlight. On the sides, Lily had drawn funny lemons with silly smiles and a big red heart. Next to her, on the porch, stood her mother, Jennifer Thompson. In her hands was a mug of cold coffee, but her eyes were fixed on her daughter. In her gaze, pride mixed with pain. A year ago, Lily had long, light hair that she tied into 2 pigtails. Now her head was covered with a light fuzz. Her hair had fallen out due to chemotherapy. Lily knew her illness was expensive. She had heard her parents talking about it at night, about the medical bills, the fear of losing their home, about how hard it would be to pay for her next round of chemo. She couldn't just sit and wait. "Mom, what if I start selling lemonade?" she asked one evening. Jen looked at her, not believing her ears. "Lemonade?" "Yes, everyone loves lemonade. Maybe people will buy it, and it will help me." Jen's throat tightened. "Are you sure?" "It might be tough." Lily smiled. "I'm strong, Mom." The next day they started preparing. Now sitting in front of her table, Lily gripped the marker tighter. She was ready, but she didn't know that this day would change her life forever. The past doesn't crumble suddenly. It cracks slowly, like glass under the pressure of small, almost unnoticeable events. At first, Lily just got tired more often. "Probably a growth spurt," Jennifer would say to Mark when Lily fell asleep right after dinner, dropping her spoon into her plate. But soon bruises appeared. "Did you fall?" Mark would ask when he noticed the purple spots on her arms. "No," Lily would shrug. The worry grew, but it became truly scary that night when her temperature spiked. 103 degrees, Mark said with a trembling voice, holding the thermometer. Jen rushed to the phone. "We're going to the hospital." The hospital walls were white and frighteningly clean. Lily sat on the examination table, swinging her legs while the doctor studied her test results. The doctor sighed heavily. "Mrs. Thompson, your daughter has leukemia." Mark closed his eyes as if hoping the words would disappear when he opened them. Jen gripped Lily's hand tighter. "Leukemia. What does that mean?" Lily looked straight at her mom. Jen smiled, though her voice trembled. "It means we're going to fight, sweetie." The first round of chemotherapy was awful. "It's just medicine," Jen would say when the nurse inserted the needle into Lily's arm. But Lily didn't believe it. She felt empty, fragile, broken. One night she heard her mom crying. "How are we going to manage?" Mark whispered. "Have you seen the bills? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars." "I don't know," Jen replied with a trembling voice. Lily pressed herself into the pillow. It was her illness, her body, her pain, and now Mom and Dad were scared because of her. That's when she got the idea. Lemonade. She could do something. She could help. Lily sat in the living room drawing in large letters. Lemonade for Life. She carefully traced the words with markers, choosing the brightest colors. When she finished, her mom sat down next to her. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lily looked at her, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I have to." They started working the next morning. Mark found an old folding table. It was ugly but sturdy. Jen bought lemons, sugar, and ice. Lily insisted on preparing it herself. "The lemonade has to be tasty," she declared. When everything was ready, she wrote on the donation jar, "For treatment." "Do you think anyone will put money in there?" she asked her mom. "Of course, sweetie, more than you think." The morning was clear, the sun blazing. Lily sat on the stool holding a cup of lemonade. No one approached for the first hour. A jogger passed by, didn't stop. A car drove by, slowed down but left. Lily wasn't discouraged. She moved the sign closer to the road. It needs to be visible, she explained. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Hayward, an elderly neighbor, approached. Good morning, dear. How much is the lemonade? $1. The woman placed a $10 bill in the jar. Keep the change, sweetheart. Lily smiled broadly. First sale, and then he appeared. The midday sun was relentless. Lily saw him first. A tall man in a leather jacket, despite the heat, moved down the street with that special, unhurried confidence that comes from people who have seen life. He stopped at the stand and took off his dark sunglasses. His deep, gravelly voice cut through the silence. $1 for a cup, right? Lily nodded. Yes, sir. He looked at the donation jar, at her sign. And what do you need the money for, kiddo? Lily didn't look away. I have leukemia, and I want to help Mom and Dad pay for the treatment. Something heavy, almost painful, flashed in his eyes. He reached for his wallet. Lily was surprised. Are you paying for lemonade with a check? He laughed and wrote something. When he handed her the check, Lily's breath caught. $50,000. Jennifer gasped. Oh my God. The man smiled. Keep fighting. The crowd that had gathered around the stand froze. Someone whispered, That's Clint Eastwood. Lily frowned. Are you famous? He smirked. A little, but not as famous as you're about to be. Lily laughed. She felt something incredible was just beginning. Lily sat at her stand, still clutching the check in her hands. $50,000. The number seemed unreal. She blinked several times as if checking to see if it would disappear if she looked at it from a different angle. Her mom stood next to her, covering her mouth with her hand, her eyes filled with tears. This is unbelievable, she whispered. Clint Eastwood simply shrugged, his stern face softening into a warm, almost fatherly smile. You deserve it, kiddo. The world could use more people like you. The crowd around them began to come to life. Someone took out their phone, capturing the moment. Oh my God, is that really Clint Eastwood? Someone whispered. Yes, that's the Hollywood legend. He just donated $50,000. The whisper spread down the street, turning into a murmur. People began to crane their necks to see for themselves. This is amazing. Such a noble act. This stand has become something bigger. But while everyone was in shock over Clint's act, Lily was thinking about something else. She looked at the donation jar, which now seemed tiny compared to what had just happened. She had started the day just hoping to help her parents, and now her story was becoming something much bigger. As people discussed what had happened, the mailman, Mr. Alvarez, who usually delivered their mail, stepped forward decisively. Lily, he said, pulling a $50 bill from his pocket, I think Clint is right. Let's make sure you get everything you need. He carefully placed the bill in the jar. Wow, someone in the crowd said. A young mom with a stroller looked at her little one, then, without a word, dropped $100. As if on cue, people began pulling money from their wallets. Here's $20, kiddo, for your treatment. Here, I only have a $5, but it's better than nothing. Oh my goodness, I've never been so inspired. Here's $200. Lily watched in disbelief. The crowd buzzed with emotion, bill after bill falling into the jar, which was now too small for such an outpouring of kindness. Her mom gasped as a neighbor brought a second jar to collect donations. But that wasn't all. Someone recorded a video and posted it on social media, and that changed everything. Within a couple of hours, the video of Clint Eastwood and Lily had gone viral. It was gaining thousands of views every minute. Comment after comment, people wrote, This is unbelievable. A 7-year-old girl fighting cancer inspires an entire community. Clint Eastwood proved that a real hero is more than just a screen persona. How can we help this little one? Where can we make a donation? That evening, Jennifer opened Facebook and gasped. They had already received over 500 messages. People were asking how to help. Volunteers offered to organize a charity fund. A local reporter wrote, I want to tell this story to the world. Call me. The phone started ringing off the hook. This is unbelievable, Jen whispered, covering her mouth with her hand. Mark looked at Lily, who sat at her table, unaware that her small act had already changed lives. The next day, television, calls, and help from across the country. The next morning, journalists were already standing outside their house. Lily, how did you come up with this idea? Did you expect it to go this far? Lily sat on her stool, answering sincerely and simply, I just wanted to help Mom and Dad. The media began covering her story. News anchors from major networks told the story of the little girl whose lemonade stand changed everything. Ordinary people, inspired by her act, began opening their own stands across the country, donating the money to the treatment of children with cancer. The hashtag number Lemonade for Hope became a trend on Twitter. Companies began writing to the family, offering help. A major lemonade brand sent Lily a letter with a year's supply of lemonade and a donation of $10,000. And most importantly, within a day, the amount raised for Lily's treatment exceeded $250,000. Clint Eastwood, who had already gone home, heard about this and called the family again. I'm glad people weren't indifferent, he said. Lily, you're a special girl. Thank you, Mr. Eastwood, she replied softly. You've done so much for me. No, he chuckled. You've done it for all of us. But that was just the start. Late at night, when Lily was already asleep, Jennifer and Mark sat at the kitchen table, digesting what had happened. We need to do something bigger, Jen said. Like what? Mark looked at her. She took a deep breath. Let's create a fund. The Lemonade for Life Fund. Mark froze, then slowly smiled. I think that's brilliant. The next morning, the official Lemonade for Life Fund was registered. It was meant to help thousands of children facing cancer receive treatment, support, and hope. And what about Lily? When her mom told her about it, Lily smiled broadly. Does that mean we'll be helping other kids too? Yes, sweetie. Lily looked at her now empty lemonade stand and whispered, then it was all worth it. She looked up at the sky and whispered, thank you, Mr. Eastwood. She didn't know that this story was just beginning. Several months had passed since the day Lily Thompson opened her modest lemonade stand. Since then, her life had changed forever. The Lemonade for Life Fund, which she inspired with her act, grew faster than anyone could have imagined. Schools across the country began organizing charity fairs. Children set up lemonade stands, donating the proceeds to the treatment of cancer patients. But the most amazing thing was that Lily became a symbol of hope. One morning when Lily was still asleep, Jennifer approached the mailbox. Among the many letters and congratulatory cards, one looked particularly unusual. A black envelope. There was no stamp on it, just her name, written in elegant handwriting, Lily Thompson. She carefully opened it. Inside was a note, just a few words. You showed the world that a little person can do a big thing. I'm proud of you. Signed, Clint Eastwood. Jennifer felt her throat go dry. But that wasn't all. Inside was a photograph. Clint Eastwood standing in front of Lily's lemonade stand on that very day when he gave her the check. But the most unusual thing was on the back. There was a short message, handwritten. You were a little girl with a lemonade stand, and you became someone who changed the lives of thousands. Never stop. Jen took a deep breath and, smiling through tears, carried the letter to Lily's room. When the girl woke up and saw it, her eyes widened in surprise. She ran her finger over the lines and suddenly laughed. He is famous after all. Her mom smiled. And it looks like he's been keeping an eye on you. Lily looked up. Then let's make sure he's proud of me. 2 years after she started her fight, Lily Thompson was officially declared in remission. The Lemonade for Life Fund had raised over $5 million to help other children. At a national charity event organized in honor of the fund, Lily stood on stage in front of a 1,000-strong audience. She took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I just wanted to sell a little lemonade to help Mom and Dad, she said. I didn't know that one small idea could lead to such a big change. She looked out at the crowd. But I learned that even a small act can change the world. The hall erupted in thunderous applause. At the very back of the hall, almost unnoticeable among the people, stood an elderly man in a black leather jacket. He silently nodded, his eyes shining with pride, and no one noticed as he disappeared right after her speech. That evening, when Lily returned home, she looked again at the photograph with Clint Eastwood. And suddenly, just like back then, 2 years ago, she had a new idea. Mom, what if we do more than just lemonade stands? She suddenly asked. What do you mean? Lily smiled. Maybe kids can raise money in other ways? Maybe drawing, baking, organizing charity fairs? What if Lemonade for Life becomes more than just stands, a whole movement? Jennifer froze. She looked at her daughter, who once sat on a stool with a pitcher of lemonade and now dreamed of changing the world. I think that's a brilliant idea, sweetie. The end. Number this is just the beginning. Thus, a new movement was born, inspired by one little girl and her lemonade stand. And somewhere in distant Hollywood, an elderly man with a warm smile watched the news and knew that she had done exactly what she was meant to. She never stopped.